Hey gang, today I'm doing the full review of the Lionsteel T5. I've had a fair while to play with and use this knife, and often your opinion gets tempered in those periods and you end up less excited on something. But it's the opposite with this knife. This knife is excellent, completely stoked on it. Let's look at it next to some other knives. This is the Mora Companion, which is your pretty much standard bushcraft knife. I think most people know a Mora Companion. This is a Gerber Strongarm. So the Gerber Strongarm is a decent sized, very similar purpose knife, like multiple use type knife. This is it next to the Falkniven A1, which is like a larger type survival knife, about an inch extra blade, a bit beefier stock, a bit beefier in general. This is it next to the Falkniven S1, which is a very close competitor to this knife, in my opinion. Bit of a different tip, but overall, very similar purpose behind it. This is it next to a couple of folders, Chris Reeve Sebenza and a Benchmade 940. Just there, so you see it's a fairly beefy thing. And that's it next to a standard Bic lighter, just for overall size comparison. So overall specs of this knife, the blade is a 5.04 inches. The overall is 9.92 inches, that's 128mm on the blade, 252 on the overall. The handle and the blade are about even Stevens for being about the same length as each other. It's a very balanced knife in terms of blade to handle. The blade thickness is 5mm, which is 0.2 inches, and the weight of the thing is 9.67 ounces, 274 grams. The blade is a full tang, so it is a full tang running all the way down to the butt cap type striker at the end, and it's set into a machined micarta handle. The steel is Nylox, which is a D2 variant of steel, which I've found to be good on edge retention and really good on rust resistance as well. In fact, I've been treating my Nylox with not contempt, but pretty recklessly. I've just been wiping it down under the tap after using it, and it's shown no signs of rust or adversity. So let's get the first thing out of the way. This is one of the best looking knives I've got, and one of the best looking fixed blades I've ever seen. Combination with that really nice, tall, satin finished, flat ground, well, saber I guess, ground blade, and that micarta wraparound 3D machined handle. Not many blades, in my opinion, look much better than this. And in comparison to other knives that are often quite utilitarian looking, this definitely has a certain style to it, which I know is a superficial trait, but it is one that is appreciated nonetheless. The coolest thing about this knife, though, is that the things that look so good also feel really good to use in practice. So that blade, it looks good, but it cuts well too. The handle, it looks great, but it feels awesome as well in your hands. So the design and the use have really come together nicely. So in terms of use, I've used this for I think the better part of a month now, and I've used it pretty regularly. I've really been trying to get a good feel on this knife. I initially thought, this knife is excellent, but surely something will present itself to make it less excellent, but it really hasn't. So against food, once I'd fixed the edge, which was the only real knock I'd put on this knife, it's a little bit thick behind the edge when you first get it. Once I'd backed that off just a little bit, it performs really, really well on food. Really, really good slicer, really good cutter. You can do some pretty fine stuff with this pretty big knife. It's really, really impressive. The Nylox, as I said, pretty rust resistant as well. All I've been doing is just making sure it's dried off, as you would with even your most stainless steel knives, because you don't want funky water getting in and sitting in with your blades. So yeah, that's all I've been really doing with the Nylox. I haven't had to sharpen it apart from the, I did it when I did the rope test. I obviously put the convex edge on it, and then I put a Tormek edge on it after that to straighten out that, or to back off that edge a little bit. And it has performed really, really well against a variety of materials. So I've done, my cutting montage will show food and hose and all that sort of thing. I've obviously done a whole bunch of rope in order to test the Nylox. And then in my testing in comparison with other knives of this size, I've done a bunch of woodwork and wood splitting and wood carving and that sort of thing. And the knife has just held up fabulously. One of the best things about this knife is that handle. Not only does it look great, it feels great. It is really, really good with shock resistance and that sort of thing. And it is also just really good at fitting into your hand. You can put your thumb on that back plate of the knife just there where it's resting right now if you want to choke up. But otherwise, just in your standard hammer grips, it's nice and round, it's nice and simple, and it fits my, I guess, larger sized hands really, really well. Maybe if you had really small hands, it might be a bit of a big knife for you overall. The S1 might find the delicate handle of that a little bit better in your palm, but in this one, for me, absolutely fantastic. Now, in terms of like more rough work, yeah, I split a whole bunch of wood with it. I've chopped a whole bunch of wood with it. I've split the nasty wood. This is like the redwood. I did this when I was doing my testing against the other knives, and it's a beast. It does the exact thing you want it to do. It saves the edge. It bears the pressure of the wood up on the higher part of the Scandi grind, or the saber grind, and it's a real good beater knife. It didn't show any signs of failing or twisting or chipping or distorting or anything that other knives have done in the past. And then when it comes to slicing, again, once you've backed up that edge a little bit, it'll slice and whittle and curl wood just fine. As much as you want to press or as little as you want to press, you'll make the curls that correspond to those cuts. No problems at all doing any sort of outdoorsy, woodworky sort of task, none that I could anticipate anyway. And the knife has that strength or the toughness in the steel that enables you to be a bit careless with your cuts. You're going to get tired, you're going to twist off a bit earlier, you're going to just be a bit rougher with it than probably average, and the knife will be forgiving for that sort of behaviour. So look, overall, there's nothing I can really say wrong about this knife. It's excellent. It really is. It's probably my favourite fixed blade knife, and that's I know I'm just one guy, but that's reasonable praise. I've had a whole bunch of fixed blade knives come through here. It does the general stuff better than the Falconeven S1. It holds its edge for longer. It's more comfortable in your hand. It's got a better handle. The blade is taller, unless you're really worried about the profile of the knife in terms of how tall it is. I think this is just a better buy overall, and you even pay a bit less money. And that brings me to the next part, which is the sheath. So, the sheath. Usually when you pay a bit for a knife and you get a really good knife, you get a pretty average sheath. This is the best sheath I've ever had. In terms of a factory sheath that's made of leather, as long as you're happy with leather, best leather sheath going. It is that good. It holds the knife really well. It's got a good collar that holds the knife in place while you're clipping the retention strap across. It doesn't sit too high. You know that sort of, I always see it as like the knife equivalent of like an atomic wedgie, when the knife sits all high and pokes you in your love handle. It doesn't do that. It sits just about right. I would probably rather a little bit lower, but really you can lean down, you can tie up your shoelaces without getting a knife butt in your belly fat. So good in that respect. Very, very good. The leather construction is really, really excellent. And when you flip it over, you'll see it's got a leather molly strap. How cool is that? You can unclip that and you can put your knife on your pack if you're one of those types that likes to do that. Really well constructed, Italian made leather sheath included in the price. Really does up the value a whole lot on this knife. Excellent Lionsteel. So overall, you've got a knife that is really good value, does all the outdoorsy stuff really, really well, has a steel that will hold its edge better than most non-powder steels for the price which you pay. Is you're not paying $500, you're paying 250 Australian dollars, which it's nothing to snort at obviously, but it's a steel that is fair for that price, especially when you're considering having a really well machined micarta handle and a really well done leather sheath. The value is here, I think, and if I could have any of my 5-inch knives, if I had to get rid of all the other ones, this would be the one that I keep. The only flaw is that you have to back the edge up a little bit to make it slice really, really good. And that's it. That is all I've been able to come across so far. Look, this is the real deal, this knife. It is a true one knife to rule them all in terms of something that will do just about anything you need it to do without costing an absolute arm and a leg. It's made by a reputable company. It looks awesome. People will be wanting to check out your knife because it is really, really cool looking. And if you love knives, then that is something that's going to be tangible to you as well. So look, in terms of something that I would suggest you could buy as a gift for someone, or just buy for yourself and use it and carry it on your hip with pride, I don't think you can get much better in today's mid-sized knife world than the Lionsteel T5. It really is an excellent fixed blade knife. 10 out of 10, would buy again. Thanks for watching, dudes. See you later.